Got that on there. Welcome to Dream Farm. First thing we're going to do on this episode today, it's the 30th of January, right, Jordan? We don't know what day it is, but the first thing we're going to do is look at this corn plot. And I haven't been here. I knocked this corn plot down on, I think, 7th or 8th of January. And I haven't been back since to see how much the deer hit it. And we knew that there was a lot of corn here and maybe not a lot of deer. They sure weren't using it during that part of the season, but a cold snap came after that. So it's going to be interesting to see just how much of this they ate from roughly June 7th or 8th until today. So let's get off and walk around and take a look. But I can even see just from the form. June 7th or 8th? January, yeah. But yeah, I can even see from here that they've eaten a ton of it. A lot, because this was all solid corn. None of these ears had been touched. And then when I knocked it down and then we had all that cold weather, you can see that they're really hitting it. And I mean, they haven't cleaned it out, but they're definitely working in that direction. We'll walk a little bit further up in here and see. And once we take a look at this, today's episode is really going to be about cutting trees. You know, what we're going to cut. We'll get it started today, and then we'll really get into it tomorrow. Today's more of a getting used to the equipment. You know, I haven't cut for quite a while, so I've got to get back into the groove. And Jordan doesn't have a lot of experience with a chainsaw, so
Zero?
What?
Zero?
A little bit last spring. I think he did a little tiny bit, but
I tried to cut down one tree.
Yeah, it's a start. You know, humble beginnings.
Gotta start somewhere.
Yeah. So let's take a look at this, and then we'll talk about the TSI work. It's a big project. We got a lot to do, so it'll be hopefully some stuff we can pass along to the viewers. Dream Farm is brought to you by Whitetail Institute Food Plot Blends, Hunt Stand Pro Whitetail App, Hoyt Archery, Wildlife Farming, and PH Outdoors. This is where we're going to start. There's 52 acres in this project, 52 acres of timber, and that's a lot. But the upside is that we don't have to cut down all the cedars. Our contract, our forestry plan calls for us to remove bitternut, hickory, elm, ironwood, hackberry. I think there was a couple others in there, but pretty much.
Why?
Just to make room for the more preferred species. You know, like what we really want to come back here is the oak.
So are those all invasives, or are some of them native? They're just not ideal.
Yeah, they'd be what you would call probably junk timber.
Ah.
You know, so in a normal forestry TSI project, you're trying to improve the overall quality of the trees that remain.
Right.
And we're trying to do that too. We're trying to do oak regeneration also, because if you look behind, I mean, right straight behind you as you're looking at this, that's an oak tree.
Oh, yeah.
And see, it's surrounded now here by cedar trees, a couple of elms, there's a few other species. So before we're done here, I am going to cut down some of these cedars. But that's not necessarily the focus of this plan or of this TSI cut. It's just going to be something that we do as we go along. We might have to come back again later and really address the cedars more aggressively. So we've got some spots that are just loaded with cedar.
Because the government said to cut down those other stuff, and then, or those other types.
Right.
And then it's your preference to cut down the cedars,
yeah,
scrubby cedars as well.
Right. And the government, speaking through the district forester.
Right.
So this program that we're utilizing is the CSP. And I'm not 100% sure what that stands for. I'll have that tomorrow when we do day 2 of this, but conservation something, you know, I know the word conservation. Conservation is in there. So that's what we're after. And normally when I do TSI, I'm focused on almost everything except like cherry, walnut, oak, maybe a couple other species. Like I'll cut down basswood, and I think basswood is on our cut also.
Would you say that you generally take a more aggressive or a more conservative approach when you do TSI? Like, are you kind of get rid of everything that's not perfect, or you like just clear out some stuff?
I think I tended to be very aggressive, but uh, that's only because my secondary or my primary focus was probably habitat, and my secondary focus was the quality of the timber.
I see.
So, like a forester might look at this and say, "Okay, we got to release our oak trees, or we've got to release our walnut trees," and that might call for a little bit less cutting. Then I might say, "Well, let's just release the forest floor
Right.
everywhere." So we get more regeneration, more undergrowth, more browse, more cover, across the boards. Whereas a true forestry only TSI project might not be quite as widespread.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but they are very aggressive around their target trees, though.
Right.
I mean, those foresters, they'll even have you cutting like misformed oak down. They're more aggressive than me when it comes to those specific target trees that they're trying to release. So that's what we're going to do. Let's talk about. We'll do a few little safety tips too, but let's cut one down. Jordan can film me. I'll cut this cedar tree down. She can film me cutting that down, and then I'll have her cut one down, and then we'll talk about safety. Well,
shouldn't we talk about safety before? Wait just a second. Rewind.
No, let's just see how you do first.
Oh, okay.
And then we'll decide.
So when I'm not on day 2's episode, it's
Yeah.
because I didn't make it through day 1.
She didn't make the safety cut. Okay, so that was pretty easy. And I'm not the world's greatest at cutting stuff down. We're not going to tackle the really challenging trees, the hard leaners, and stuff that looks dangerous. The main things I look for when I'm cutting them down is to make sure that they're not hung up in anything up above. So, I've heard some really, really horror stories. Somebody will drop this tree and a dead branch falls off the one that's next to it and, lands right on top of the guy. So that's super important. Don't just assume that everything looks clear just because you can see where it's going to fall. You gotta make sure you check out first where it's coming from. Then the other thing is you want to notch or at least make some kind of cut on the backside, the direction you want it to fall. And that way when it goes, and this is a mistake I was making last year, was the tree would split or it would twist or do whatever because I didn't cut the backside first. So just cut in a few inches, and that way when it goes and it falls in the direction that it's going to, which is usually downhill, then it falls clean. Like that tree, that was super safe. It went over real slow, didn't split, didn't twist or turn or do anything crazy. And that's about as big a tree as we're going to cut, maybe a little bit bigger than that. There's looks like a elm tree right here. I made an opening now for Jordan. She's going to drop this elm tree down into this hole, and she'll do the same thing. She'll make a little cut on the downhill side in the direction where she wants it to fall, and then she'll come in on the uphill side right above that and make the primary cut. Then the tree, we'll watch it, we'll make sure it's small enough, even if it falls on her, it won't hurt her. But that way she gets a feel for how to target where the tree's going to fall. Okay, so now this will bring up a couple more safety tips. Where you stand when you're cutting is important because you want to be able to have like an escape route so that you're agile enough that if the tree does something that you don't expect, that you can get out of there. You don't want to be where you don't have an exit, where you kind of boxed in. Right. And then, yours, your first cut was fine, where you made the downhill side one, then your uphill side one was probably a little bit too high and you had to go back and make another one. But all of that's just experience, practice. This is your second tree ever.
I was also kind of off to the side, like directly next to the tree. Would you recommend being a little more like up so you can kind of see better your top cut? Because I couldn't really see the back side of the tree.
Right.
I could only see like the side of it.
Yeah, I think so. And then also normally your escape route is going to be up
Right.
in this country.
Right.
Yeah. So if you're already tending to be above it, you're in a better position to scramble. So, I mean, we were just talking about this. We just cut 3 trees and it feels completely different here. I mean, it's sort of like, you look at it now, so you can get a sense of what happens when you remove, a handful of trees in one pocket.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And then you move on to another pocket and move, take a handful of trees out. So we're gonna get away from these cedars for now, so we can make a little bit more progress. And we'll come back and work the cedars again before we're done. But I like cutting the cedar trees down around these oaks, because you're going to get oak regeneration then, because there's some residual little oaks in there trying to grow already, plus whatever acorns we had last year that are trying to root. So you feel like you got something to to gain in those areas. Just going into a big wide open patch of cedars and starting to cut those, or not wide open, but solid patch of cedars, it's harder to get excited about that, because
we have a bunch of hillsides like that here where it's just the cedars and there's not hardly anything else. Yeah,
the one behind us, the one where we worked on a little bit last winter, we'll end up on there again, because this is that ridge system that those cedars are on that we're doing the TSI work this winter.
Even the goat prairie was almost solid cedars, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was openings there too, but you're right.
Yeah.
And you could see once we cut that, all the little oak trees and stuff were starting to come up.
Flowers and everything, because we went in there in the spring in like May, and it was pretty crazy, all of the different things that were starting to pop up after those cedars got cleared out. Yeah,
not to mention the rattlesnake that I've
Right.
No,
right.
but he would have been there anyway.
Yeah.
We didn't
sprouted.
encourage. Yeah, we didn't grow him. So let's move to another spot. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we can cut, but gosh, I'd love to be able to just go wild in here for a few days on these cedars and open this up around these oak trees. But just for the sake of making some progress here and keeping this episode moving, we're going to go further up the hill. Normally, you start from the bottom and work your way up, because you're dropping the trees and then you're dropping the ones above them into the openings that you made from the ones you dropped that were below. So normally you're working uphill and making your opening, your hole as you go.
I have another question. When you cut down these trees, I'm assuming you're just going to leave them, right? We might have talked about that once, but do you just leave the fallen trees because they make like bedding and like thick understuff, but doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose of helping the undergrowth sprout if it's covered by trees?
Well, it doesn't take very long before all the leaves and needles and stuff are gone and the sunlight goes through. The only real upside to, well, I wouldn't say only, but one of the big upsides to leaving the tree on the ground is that top of the tree shelters a certain area of ground where other little trees could come up without the deer eating them.
Right.
So in a high density area, those tops are super important. It's not as big of a deal here because we don't have tons of deer. So I mean, we could kill these trees standing and we would still get most of the same benefits, because we don't need that protection area or that sanctuary that we create with the top of the tree. But in some places, like our farm in southern Iowa, we needed that. We needed those trees on the ground so those tops would protect at least that big of an area for the regeneration.
It was that competitive?
There was a lot of deer.
Yeah.
It was enough that, in a normal winter, or if we had a drought summer where there wasn't a whole lot of food in the plots and stuff like that, they would wipe out a lot of the preferred browse. So that's something to keep in mind too. We had a hard time growing trees.
Yeah.
Because the deer would eat the trees while they were growing, so, and again, that's not the case here. So let's go up the hill. This is a lot steeper, I think, folks.
Really steep.
In 3D than what it
looks. You ever seen 3D, Grandpa?
Yeah. Well, Grandpa, you wouldn't like this hill.
No, I don't like this hill.
We're going up it though. Day 1 is in the books. We got a little bit of work done today. We only probably put in a couple of hours and I don't know, maybe knocked down 40 trees. It's a slow process on this steep ground.
It's deceivingly steep. I know we said that earlier, but I didn't even realize, because I've never been up on this bluff before, but when you're driving through and looking at it from aerial, you don't appreciate how you're really you're staggered. You're one slip away from sliding down the hill.
Yeah, we had a couple close ones, but we'll be back again tomorrow. I think Carson's going to be here to help, and then eventually we'll have 3 saws going. Probably just tomorrow will be me and Carson, but Jordan can run cameras. So we'll see you again tomorrow.